Hi, in today's video, I'm going to show you a very amazing game of Garry Kasparov, the legend of chess. So his opponent is Veselin Topalov. So let's start the game. Garry Kasparov playing as white. Game started with e4, the king's pawn opening. Black responded with pawn d6, which is called the Pirk defense. Kasparov takes the full center with d4. Black developed his knight on f6, attacking the white pawn. Kasparov developed his knight on c3, also defending that pawn. Then black played g6 to keep his dark bishop on this long diagonal. This is also called Fien Chateau the bishop. After that, Kasparov developed his other knight in f3. Now as black planned, he put the bishop on the long diagonal on g7 and he is ready to castle. After that, Kasparov put his bishop on e2 to castle. Now both players castled kingside. Now this is the time for black to develop his light bishop, but he pushed his pawn to c5, challenging the Kasparov d4 pawn. Generally, we don't trade pawns in the center, but Kasparov traded his pawn on c5. At this time, both players' game is equal. After that, Kasparov pushed his e4 pawn to one square ahead, attacking the knight. Black saved his knight by moving it to g4. Now Kasparov developed his dark bishop on f4, providing double defense to the pawn. Black developed his knight on c6. Now you can see there are 3 attackers and only 2 defenders of white of this e5 pawn. So Kasparov should add another defender, but he didn't do that. Instead, he placed his rook on e1, putting it on the half open file. Also, he sacrificed the pawn, but that doesn't matter because he can recover the loss few moves later. Then black took the pawn with his g4 knight. White took back the knight with his knight. After that, black again recaptured with his knight. But Kasparov didn't take the knight immediately. Instead, he moved his bishop on b5. After that, black traded a queen. Now you can see here white attacks the knight 2 times with the bishop and rook, and there is only one defender, so black moved his knight to c6, asking white to trade bishop and knight, but white moved his knight on d5. Black pushed his pawn to kick the knight, and after Kasparov took the black knight with his bishop. Pawn takes white knight and bishop took the pawn. Now he recovered the pawn he lost earlier. So as you can see, the game is totally equal. After that, black takes the b2 pawn with his bishop. That's the advantage of putting bishop on long diagonal. Kasparov played bishop d6, attacking the black rook. Black played rook d8, counter-attacking the white bishop. At this time, Kasparov made a mistake. He moved his rook to e7. You can see the black rook can actually take the white bishop. And also, Kasparov does not have any payback. Here he can only give this check, which does nothing. And if you are thinking that to capture this black pawn on f7 and thinking black king will move and you can take the rook with your rook, so this idea is totally wrong, because after bishop takes pawn and he will simply go on f8, attack the bishop and the rook, and here white is losing. But I don't know what happened to black. He moved his bishop on e6, asking for bishop exchange. And guess what? This move is also a blunder, because you can see black a8 rook is trapped. White took the b7 pawn and there is no escape for black rook. So black played bishop e5, but white took the rook first. Then black again made a mistake. He took bishop on d6 by his rook. Like literally he could take the bishop with his bishop. How anyone can imagine to play without a rook against Garry Kasparov? After this black stupidity, white recaptured the black rook with his rook. Black bishop took back, and there you can see there are 2 bishops against a rook and bishop. White is totally winning here. White saves the rook and captured the a7 pawn. Black played bishop e5. White pushed his a pawn. Black played pawn on c4. White played rook a5, attacking the black bishop. Black saved his bishop. White played bishop d5, asking for bishop exchange. Black denied the trade and played bishop f5, attacking the pawn. White took the black pawn on c4. Black bishop captures c2 pawn. Now white gives a check by playing rook a8. Now king g7. White played bishop d5. Black pushed his f pawn. White also pushed his pawn. Black tried to stop the pawn by moving the bishop on d3, but this does not work. White played rook c8. Black pushed his g pawn. White played bishop c4, asking bishop exchange. Black is totally hopeless, so he traded the bishop. Rook takes c4, attacking the black bishop. After that, black played bishop a7. Now look closely. This is not a blunder. This is actually forced, because black was thinking that he can stop the white a pawn with his bishop, but now he can't, because he can't stay on this diagonal. Because rook attacks the bishop, he can't go on e3 because that square is occupied by white pawn. He can't go on c5 because a rook occupied at a square. And lastly, he can't go on b6 because it is occupied by this a pawn. And if he moves to other diagonal like b2 and f5, now this pawn is unstoppable. So that's why black gave the bishop like that. I think he should resign, but I think he wants to be checkmated. However, white took the bishop with h-pawn push. White rook on e7, clearing the path for the a pawn. g4 pawn, a6, king f6 attacking the rook. Rook e1, h4, pawn a7, g3, h takes g3, h takes g3, f takes g3, f4, g takes f4, king f5, g3, king g4, king f2, king h3, white king on f3, king h2, and now Kasparov starts pushing his g pawn. He can push his a pawn and finishing the game, but he chose to push g pawn and black played h3. And you can see this is actually checkmate by playing rook h1, but white decided to troll black. He kept pushing his g-pawn. Black started chasing the g-pawn. After some moves, white makes the queen. Black played his last move, king h5. Now white played rook h1, checkmate. End of the suffering for black. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you do so, please subscribe this channel.